Swampland. Remote, forbidding, treacherous. A distributary of the Mississippi, the Atchafalaya River floodway. A swath of wilderness that cuts down through the center of Louisiana for 62 miles to the Gulf of Mexico. The highways skirting to south and north across narrow parts of the floodway. Then came the nation's southernmost interstate highway to cut straight across the widest part of the 18-mile swamp. Jungle growth, water, and liquid mud. To find a base for an interstate crossing took years of research. A man-sized job for testing crews. There were hundreds of borings. From these, they made a drawing of what lay below. A sea of muck 95 feet deep, resting on a stratum of hard sand. A stable base to support piers of an elevated roadway. Less costly to build in the mire than an earth-fill embankment. Its 28-foot elevation will permit the flow of floodwaters toward the Gulf. To clear a crossing, crews slogged through mud and ooze and jungle growth. To clear a swath 300 feet wide along the full length of the 18-mile crossing. Down the center of this clearing, a waterway was dredged. A construction canal 125 feet wide to float barges, to serve as working platforms for men, materials, and equipment. To reach the crossing, natural waterways were the only roadways. This became a job of logistics, using the waterways to transport the 3 bridge parts fabricated outside the swamp. In a plant 250 water miles away. The piling, caps, and deck slabs are loaded onto giant barges to move out across treacherous Lake Pontchartrain. The 2 barges, each up to 190 feet long, stretch out in front of the tug the length of a city block. For 4 long days, around the clock, the tows will travel the water route to the site. In some 3 hours, they cross 24 miles of the lake. Then, ease into the industrial canal, passage through the city of New Orleans. They are maneuvered into the locks at the western end of the canal, to be lifted to the level of the Mississippi. Slowly the waters rise, and in an hour the lock gates open. The tows push out to enter the Mississippi. Past ships at anchor and industrial plants, they move a short distance downstream, then leave the river to enter locks on the west bank. Here they are lowered from the level of the river to the waters of the Intracoastal Canal, famous inland waterway. The tows ply this busy thoroughfare westward for another 20 hours. They glide past remote countryside. The captains are artists in maneuvering the cumbersome loads, past farming and fishing villages, and an occasional auto ferry. And under many movable bridges, spans that lift and spans that open up. They move through towns and cities with commercial areas that serve fishing and oil industries. The tows push westward on their steady 4-day course. They enter the third and last set of locks. Here they are lifted from the level of the intracoastal canal to the broad waters of the Atchafalaya River. They follow the river northward toward the job site. Deep, treacherous, the Atchafalaya winds through the floodway. The tows travel upstream through the heart of the swampland. They move into lesser waterways, leading to the job areas, or branch into access canals, dredged to each job site as part of the construction plans. For the 18-mile project is divided into 3 jobs. The first, from the eastern levee, 8 miles to the first waterway. Job 2, 5 miles on to the Atchafalaya. Job 3, 4.5 miles to the western levee. This far-flung production line, smoothly coordinated by radio, the superintendent from central office, or car in the field, keeps in constant contact with each segment of the job. With the cranes, tugs, and launches, and even tows, some approaching 150 miles away, each in contact with the other. Along the 18-mile crossing, roadways were erected on both sides of the canal, rising above 20-foot height only to cross the boundary levees and 3 deep waterways. For these bridge approaches, pipe piling are driven and filled with concrete, to be topped by forms for columns and caps to be poured in place in assembly line production. The construction protected by metal cells lowered as cofferdams. Several set at one time, they are sunk by static load, slabs of concrete that are stacked on top. The weight piled first on one side, then another, to sink the cell evenly to grade. Tugs, the workhorses of the entire project, move the barge-mounted equipment and materials. Along the canal, the concrete pilings swing into place. 54 inches in diameter, they measure up to 148 feet in length, to be driven through the 95 feet of muck and 6 feet into the sand base below. They are spaced by a 210-foot template. Resting on the last 2 driven bents, it cantilevers out 140 feet, positioning the next 2 bents. Square pockets at each 70 feet spot the pile precisely. They are driven to within 4 inches of location. Every 4th bent is battered for stabilizing the bridge. The concrete caps, designed for economy and less weight, are narrowed in the center. Reinforcing cages with wooden bases are inserted into the piling, eased into position by the artist in the crane. the operator of the 300-ton capacity floating giant. The caps are set to precise line and grade to within 1/16 of an inch. Concrete is poured into each pile head down to the wooden frame to tie the cap to the pile. Now comes the setting of the concrete deck or roadbed, lifted by a special equalizing sling guided by taglines. 265 tons of concrete move slowly to the site. Each slab is a monolithic span. Its 5 girders and the roadbed above, all cast in one solid piece. Each slab is designed with the girders almost the full 70-foot length, leaving only a 19-inch opening or diaphragm between adjoining girders. The base of the diaphragm, recessed in the cap, and the diaphragm will be filled with concrete to anchor the deck to the piers and prevent movement. The deck above is left unpoured, 6 feet back above the girders. Reinforcing steel is set in this 12-foot opening and in the diaphragm between 2 joining slabs. The forms to enclose the opening are moved in on a carrier, an intricate giant of aluminum, especially designed for this project. From a platform in center carrier, a series of switches and levers control hydraulic rams that activate the carrier parts. 2 giant claw-like arms open out. They carry the forms and are eased down each side of the deck. The carrier base is lowered onto the deck. The arms then slide in under the deck bed to be locked together into a working platform. On signal from the foreman, the platform with forms is lifted into position, easing in between the girders to rest against the deck floor. Then the forms are moved forward against the diaphragm. They are locked into position with jacks. The forms are now set, and the giant arms are unlocked and swing open. The carrier is moved on to be fitted with new forms for the next bent. Later it will return to strip the forms. Concrete is poured in the 12-foot opening and finished. 4 or 5 of these pours are made in a day to complete some 350 feet of the roadbed each 24 hours in an unbelievable production line. Through the months, the twin bridges spanned out across the swampland as the tows on shuttle service made their 4-day runs, feeding the 3 components on schedule into a pair of bridges 18 miles long, 168 feet apart, their decks skimming 20 feet above the swamp. Jungle and water and liquid mud, conquered by boat and barge and ingenuity, as 2 concrete fingers reach straight across the wilderness. Swamp Expressway.